Hey everyone, Dee here at the studio, doing my first Birch Tree class with you guys. This is exciting, or my first one this way anyway, so that's kind of interesting. But yeah, I've been looking forward to doing a little video here for you to kind of give you a couple pointers on your Birch Tree kit that you picked up. So first off, thank you for that. I'm obsessed with painting birch trees. I love them. This is actually one of my paintings behind here too. And they're just so cool. Like for me, whenever I see birch trees, I just think of home. And it's just, they're just beautiful. And they can provide so much too, which is pretty cool. And yeah, they just make me feel like I'm at home. So I'm gonna give you a couple pointers for you to get going. Maybe you've done a class with me before and you kind of are just watching this as a little refresher. Or we've never met and you're doing this for the first time. So in your kits, so you have got your Birch Tree Kit, and inside we have your screen print. Now this is cool because we already like pre-positioned all the trees on there for you, so you don't have to do this yourself. Sometimes that's always scary for people, just, you know, doing the drawing part and whatnot. So we took care of that for you. And we got your little sheet so you can see what the finished piece looks like. And we got your paints. Now, before you get rocking and rolling on anything, you shake your paints up first really good. It just kind of gets them a little more liquefied depending on how long they've been sitting too. Just give them a good shake before you get going. And you're gonna wanna make sure you have a water cup handy. Paper towels are fantastic. So I got 2 little sheets of paper towel here. You got your plate. And this is the best part, is we actually, got custom palette knife sets made. So this is really exciting. When these came in, I was just like, this made my day. So, and you get to keep these because they came with your kit. So you can do all kinds of fun creating afterwards and just play around. Palette knives are super fun. So, and I'm gonna kind of give you a couple pointers on using them to kind of make your trees look like birch trees after. So first things first is you are going to do your background. Oh, and you have a little sponge that comes in your kit too. Actually, Steve, you want to grab me a sponge there? Mm-hmm. That would be awesome. Steve's hanging out here with me and he's going to help me put this video together because we have to do a couple little angles where we got to go above so that you can kind of see what's going on. So he's just grabbing me a little sponge. Thanks, Stephen.
No problem.
Yeah, so you have a sponge that came in your kit as well too, because that's actually how we're gonna do our background here. So we're actually just gonna pause for a sec and then we're gonna snip in. I'm gonna kind of show you how to do your background. Okay. All right, everyone. So you got your water cup and you got your sponge here. So what you actually wanna do first, this part's kind of fun, is get the back part of your canvas a little bit wet. So we're diluting this paint, but a little trick first is let's get some water in the background. If you have a little sponge at home too, or a spray bottle, you can use that. But I'm just kind of with the tools that you've been provided. Oh look, I'm getting hair, probably a piece of my own hair. There we go. I'm getting this a little bit wet. Okay, just so you can kind of see this happening. Okay, and don't worry about the image in the background. It's not going to disappear. That's on there solid, nice and screen printed on there for you. So it's it's wet, all right? So what I wanna do next, I'm actually gonna put some, if Steve's able to, Steve's actually hovering above me right now. Are you over here by the plate, Steve?
Yeah.
Okay, put a little bit of water on your plate. See, I'm putting some water on my plate with the sponge. This is gonna be fun. Okay, I'm gonna grab some of my blue. It's kind of like you're turning acrylic into watercolor. Okay, add a little bit of that blue in there. Okay. And just see what kind of happens. We want it really liquidy. That's the trick. Nice and liquidy. Okay. And now it's almost like it's water, but the color's in there. And then you're just gonna play around and very lightly. I'm holding the sponge super light, like very loose, light as a feather. Okay, and I'm just going across. Going to grab some more, but because it's wet already, the color of the paint is going right into the water and it's really cool. And you're gonna just kind of play around until you kind of get what you like. If you want it super soft, like this is super soft here, then you use very little paint. If you want to darken it up, just get yourself a little more, okay? But again, a little more water. Okay, get that water in there. Okay, and just kind of add a little more. And just see what happens. It's never going to be the same twice, actually, so you just kind of play around until you get the kind of washed look that you like. Oop. Little cap there. Okay, if you want, again, if you wanted it darker, you can just darken it up. Maybe it's darker up top, maybe it gets lighter at the bottom. You just kind of play around. And then once you kind of get a look that you like, you're gonna just let it sit for a little bit. All right, I'm gonna let that sit. I like kind of what's going on there right now. So we're gonna let this sit for maybe like 5-10 minutes, and then we're gonna go on to the next step. All right, awesome. So we can press stop on that. Okay, so now that you got your background the way that you like it, what we're gonna do next is we wanna fill in all of our trees. One at a time, so you got your brushes out, okay? I'm gonna fill these all in black first. Now, a lot of times when people look at this, they think that I do the white first, then the black, but it's a little bit of a trick, actually. We go black, white, black. So we so just squeeze out a little bit of black there, okay? And you can grab whatever brush you like, but you know what? If you're gonna start, I'll start actually over here with the smaller ones, and then I'll kind of work my way over. Or actually, you know what? I'm gonna start over here and work my way this way, because then I won't have my hand I won't get my arm in the paint, right? So I'll use this big brush here, the number 10, just break it up a little bit of water, okay? Usually when I stick my brush in the water, I kind of always dab it on the napkin. Nice big scoop of black, okay? And just this part's gonna be really fun. So hopefully you have maybe some tunes going on. I always have to listen to music when I'm painting, actually. I love it. And this one's gonna be nice and fun because it's just stay in the lines. See how I'm kind of you can practice like your control by just like pressing, follow the lines I already made there for you. So that part you don't even have to think about. The hard stuff's done. You just get to have fun filling it in. Okay. Get that on there. And you don't have to be like super particular because we're gonna end up going over it with black or with white anyway after it dries. So nice and smooth. That little bit of water that I stuck on the brush kind of helps move the paint, makes it very silky. It's really nice. So just press. And just get your black trees filled in here. Oh, there's something actually really peaceful about painting it in. Really do enjoy actually doing our kits. Steve and I talk about it all the time, that it's really peaceful for us too, just to follow the lines. And you know, we hope that you're having a really good time while you're doing this. This is the fun part. I mean, it's all fun, but this part's super fun because just getting the paint on there. Now, when you get to some spots where you want to be a little more controlled, you can grab a different brush if you like. I'll just throw this in my water while I'm not using it. And the little angled brush here can kind of help you get into your branches a little better. So again, just kind of wet it, wipe it on the napkin. When you want to kind of, you know, have a little more control, you can use the angle brush this way. I'll kind of put my pinky down and then I just lightly get in there and just kind of move the brush along the branch, but I'm using the angle, right, which is the best part here. So you're able just to get in there There we go. I had a little bit of water on that, so I'll go back over it after. But again, now maybe I'll just continue with this brush. Why not? Right, and just get in there and just press. Okay, once you do one layer, you could do 2 layers if you want. But again, once this all dries, we're gonna go over it with the white. So I'm just gonna take my time and I'm gonna fill this all in, and then we'll come back and I'll show you how to do the white, because you're gonna paint all your trees and then you're gonna let it dry, and then we're gonna start on the next step. Okay, everyone, so I kind of jumped a little bit ahead here. We had a little bit of technical difficulties with the video, but we're just rolling with it. So you would have already got all your white down, and you've opened up your palette knife set, okay? And it comes with 2 different palette knives in there. Now, step 1 requires you to use the big one to start. And just to kind of like just go over, if you've never used one before at all, you're going to use the back side. Okay, so you're going to use the back side of the knife, and you're actually going to put your white paint in going inwards on the tree. So all the paint goes on back here and it goes in. So I'm actually going to show you, I'm going to finish up this one. I'll do this one here so you can kind of see the motions of how to do it. It's going to feel a little weird at first, but you'll get the hang of it, I promise. And it kind of gives a really cool effect, as you can already kind of start seeing on this one. Because we had the black under there, it's kind of neat because that black kind of shows through here. And yeah, so let me just get to it and I'll show you how to get started. So we're going to start by filling in the rest of this side here. So you put the paint on the back of the knife. Steve's hovering above me right now on a step stool, poor guy, hanging his arms above. So I'm going to do this as fast as I can. So we put the white on the back, okay? And I kind of like to follow along the lines a little bit that we've already done, and then I kind of graze the white in. And you're gonna hear it scratching. It's kind of cool. That just means that you're doing it, okay? Load up a little more. Make your way, bring it over, okay? If you end up putting a little more paint on, you can kind of do a little glidey technique. So I got a little bit of paint on there and I can like super lightly graze it. And you can see how I got like almost like a full cover there. So it's almost like icing a cake really smoothly with the paint.
It looks like a sheet, it's nice.
Like a sheet?
Yeah, like the actual sheet of birch bark.
Well, exactly, yeah, Steve, exactly, which is kind of cool because when you lay it over, it kind of will give a little texture. So that's kind of what gives it that neat kind of textury look, like the actual tree, like, or the bark wants to peel,
yeah,
right?
I like that.
So you can grab a little more. And like, see, I had some under there and I added a little extra, and now I'm just like kind of like super lightly doing a little bit of, we'll call it icing. You're gonna ice your tree. Put that icing on there. Okay. And you're kind of just going along. Now, you kind of never got to see this one start from the beginning. So I'll come back to this one later and I'm going to show from here, because you're going to go up one side and then you go up the other side. So I'm just going to go and get some more paint. Okay, and I'm going to go up this side here. So seeing it from the beginning, it goes from the black underneath to getting that white on there. So you can almost just see how I'm kind of just making my way. When the paint runs out, I go get some more. Okay, that paint's all along the back here. And you're gonna get cool little movements, like that just happened. And I kind of like it, so I might just leave it, okay? And then just let it do its thing. Fill it in. I always kind of say less is more, and then you can add on. So you don't want this to be super goopy white, okay? So you wanna not go crazy with it, just a little bit. So I went up that one whole side, and now I'm gonna do the other side. I need a little more paint. Okay, so we'll get some out there. And And now I want to go up this side. And once you find if you start getting a lot of paint on your knife, just wipe it off. Wipe it off on your napkin, start fresh. Let's do the other side. Okay, so now I want to go the other side. We're going to bring it up and then bring it in. How are you doing up there, Steve?
Good, looks good.
Good? Okay. Okay, going up, going in. But see that, if you want to make cute, like cool little scratchy marks, when you don't have a lot of paint left, it ends up looking kind of neat. Like if I just want to like scratch in a little bit, can you probably hear it kind of tapping on there? Maybe I don't want that all to be black. See, you just get these cool little, the knife kind of makes the neat little markings. So just kind of have fun with it and experiment a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna go up here. The branch will be separate. Making my way in. See, that didn't want to cover, but look how neat that kind of just looks. So let's just leave it. You just don't know what's gonna happen. And as your paint runs out, you get those neat little scratchy marks. I don't even know what to call them, scratchy marks. That's what they are.
Fine details.
Little details, exactly. Okay, and if I want to put a little bit on the branch there, just go nice and light. I don't need lots of paint for over there. And just kind of make your way. Do a little bit of scratching. Just a little bit. That's all you need to do. Okay, I'm like barely touching it. You can kind of see that. And it just makes those nice little detail marks. But the knife is doing it for me. So the knife is your brush here. Okay, I'm going to go in on this side and just lightly bring in a little bit of paint. So as long as I just stay in my little lines, that's all that matters. Okay,
that's cool.
A little bit right there. And then you can kind of let that sit. Now I'm going to go back to tree number 1 here, and I'm going to do some of that gliding. Okay, so I kind of lightly put it on. Now we're going to like glide almost a little bit more of that icing on it to kind of give it some of this look. All right, so I loaded up a little extra on here. And let's just glide it over here. Very glidey. So you're not gonna hear the scratching when you're gliding. You're just gonna graze right across the top and see what happens. See, like I just kind of grazed there and it kind of went over top of that black, right? Popping right off. I'm gonna leave that. I kind of like that big chunk there. Let's put a little bit up here. Just gonna ice a little bit. See what happens. Don't want that totally black, so let's just kind of like throw in just a little bit. See what it wants to do. Cool. Okay, let's do a little icing up here. See what kind of starts happening. Very lightly, just lightly bringing that paint. Kind of going on the back here and just tapping and smoothing a little bit. Okay, I like that one. And it's got that texture in there, right? So I'm gonna do a little bit over here. Let's do a little icing over top. Not everywhere though, not everywhere, just in some spots, right? So just there, but I like leaving that barely there. It's gonna give it that little dimension, right? A little bit over here. I really like what's going on there. I think I might just leave that. Maybe a little bit. Let's just put a little bit in there. Just a little bit. Just a little bit of paints on the back there, and I'm just playing around. Okay, so you're gonna do that on all of your trees. All right, so I'm gonna do that, but I'm gonna do it in a little bit of a time lapse so that we can move on to the next stage, which will then be adding in some little black details. So just have fun, take your time. Get that first layer on. Maybe you're a little, doing it a little lightly, and then you're doing a little of that icing technique on the top, okay? And then we'll come back for the next step. All right, but have fun doing that part. you did all of the white on your trees. And our next step is to add in some little fine details within the tree trunks. So when you look at this, actually some people, you could look at it and you could kind of leave it the way it is if you wanted, but when we go in and we add some fine little markings with the smaller black palette knife, what I'm going to show you kind of how to use this little guy next, you can see the difference, right? So you can see the difference between the before and the after once the black goes on. It's kind of like with Steve's paintings too, eh? We just kind of work to get to the black at the end, so it kind of jumps our painting off the canvas. So, so you're gonna move on to using the little knife. So we use the big one to do the white, and now we're gonna use the little guy, and you're gonna use some black. So you're just gonna kind of shake it up a little bit, kind of find a little spot on your plate. You're not gonna use much, okay? And you're gonna kind of almost use your knife in the same way as the first time. Now get a comfortable position. I kind of like to angle it a little bit. Sometimes I'll actually even hold it upright and work away. So you might even kind of see me doing a little bit of both here. You just find what's best for you, right? And you're gonna do the same as with the white. You're gonna go up one side and then you're gonna go up the other, and then you're just gonna look at it and see if you like it. And actually, if you guys can see on here too, you see how when in the previous step, when we were doing that icing technique on top, you can see how some areas are like a little heavier with the white and some have that like transparency look going on, which is giving us texture, which is really cool. So, all right, we're gonna move on to using the small knife. So you don't need lots, okay? Less is more, just a little bit. So I put a little bit on the side of the knife, not a lot, okay? Not a lot at all. And I'm gonna just make my way up in some random spots and bring in a little bit of black. And it's kind of like a little bit of a little scratching technique. And you see how I barely got anything on there? That's it, I don't want lots, right? Just a little bit, go get a little more. It's right a little on that edge. You're just gonna kind of go up into some random places and just bring in a little bit of that black. And you can kind of like drag a little bit on the back, scratch a little bit with the tip, and just make your way up, right? So I'm not doing very much at all. And if I start to get too much black, I'll wipe it off on my napkin and I'll go and start again. So don't worry, take your time, do a couple little marks. And if you do too much, that can always be fixed. Okay, so just a little bit of black. So I might even make like a little line like I just did here, and I might grab some of the paint off it and just lightly graze it in. You can hear it, right? Couple little marks, make my way up. Whoop. My hand slipped, it's all good. Bring in a little bit. Again, I don't want lots, so we're not covering it. It's just a little hint. It's almost like you're kind of like outlining a little bit. We'll get a little more, make our way up here, see what happens. I want a little more. We're gonna do this whole tree together here so you can kind of see what I'm doing very lightly. Just a little bit, and then maybe just throw a little black there. Just run that line, kind of just run the black right up the side. See what happens. Graze some of it in. See, so that's just one side. A couple little markings in here and there, and that's just kind of helps symbolize the bark a little bit, and it'll help bring your tree kind of off the canvas. So we're gonna do the other side now. So now I got a little bit of black on the other side. I'm gonna go up the other side, bring a little bit of it in. Just a little bit of paint, not barely anything on this knife, barely anything. Slide up, bring a little bit in. And I will show you something that will probably happen to you, and then I'll show you how you can fix it too. Okay, so bring a little bit here, very lightly. And maybe I want to leave that area white a little bit. Just a little bit. Do a little bit to start, and then you can always step back and have a look and see if you want to do more. Now, if this happens to you, oh, actually, that looks kind of neat. I think we'll leave that. If that happens to you, leave it. Actually, that looks pretty cool.
Happy accidents.
Little happy accidents, right? That actually kind of looks like a little knot
I like it.
Right? We'll leave that one, eh, Steve?
A little chega.
Yeah. So now if you wanted to like, you can make a knot the way I just did that, drag some black over, see what happens. If you want to be a little more intentional, you can use the tip of the knife right here. And I kind of like to make like a little look of an eye. I'll kind of show you here. I'm just kind of dragging the tip. Almost like, you know, like a little Cleopatra eye, like with like makeup or whatever. I'm kind of outlining it like that. And then just dotting around in there with the black and just see what happens.
It looks good.
And we'll just leave that, right? But if you happen to like scratch over a big amount of black and you're like, oh no, I totally didn't want to do that. I don't want you to panic. I want you just to let it dry, move on to your trees, come back to that one at the end. And then what you're gonna do is take a little bit of white and you can go back over it. So nothing is set in stone when you're painting. So do not stress if you end up doing too much black and you freak out, don't freak out. We don't want you freaking out when you're painting our stuff. Okay, I want you just to know that you can go back over it with some white after. So, you know, just for an example, if I did this and I slipped and I really didn't want it to be that dark, that's all right. I'm gonna let that sit and I'm actually gonna make Steve film me do another full tree here so you can watch me, because this is always the spot where people would get stuck in my class, is doing this part. They'd always wanna come up and watch up close. So I'm gonna let you kind of watch while I do one up close so you can kind of see the movements. Your hands are gonna move differently too, and that's totally cool, but you'll find your way. And then we'll come back to that little oopsie after, and I'll show you what you can do. Okay, so you're just gonna go up the other side, just a little bit, okay? And we'll do this one. Maybe bring a little bit in there. Barely any paint. Just letting the knife kind of do it for us. You can hear that scratching, I just love it. Okay. Go up here, and on some of them you might not even want to do too much. You just might want the white to be more predominant and coming through, and that's okay. That's kind of like how birch trees are, right? If it ends up getting like too black, lots of black markings, sometimes, what is it? They can kind of look like aspen trees. Sometimes you can confuse the two, but you know it's a birch tree when the bark peels. That's how you know it's birch, because the aspens don't do that. And just bring that in and just go up here very lightly. And maybe I'm gonna put in a little intentional little knot right here just for fun. So I put it on the tip there again, and I'm just gonna make a little mark. If you don't like it in the end, you can always cover it back up with your white. It's not the end of the world, but I'm just gonna leave that there, because at the end of the day, once they're all on here, you don't want them to look exactly the same. These little markings actually help the eye bounce around your piece, which in the end, that's what you want, is you want someone's eye to kind of look all over, right? So that one's still kind of going. It's a little bit black, maybe a little too much. So what we're gonna do, I think it's kind of dry enough. Actually, let's see, we're gonna grab a little more white. Okay, and so what I'm gonna do on this one, I'm going back to the big knife. I got some white on here. We're gonna ice a little bit, but you want it to be, see, I have really good pressure control when I'm doing this. You wanna make sure this is like almost dry. This is pretty dry. It's still a little bit wet, but because I can go very lightly, I'm gonna go very lightly over top of that, because I'm just kind of used to the way these knives work, right? And I'm gonna kind of hide it a little bit, but then also kind of not. And you're gonna get that kind of neat textured look again too, right? So that little mistake that you think you did actually will end up helping your piece later when you kind of maybe go back in very softly, because it's still a little bit wet. How's that, Steve?
It looks good.
Looks cool, eh?
I like the added little spot.
Yeah, so we're gonna leave that, but I just wanted to show you that if you ended up slipping and you didn't really like it, you can fix it. Maybe I'll throw just a little bit of white just over here, very lightly. And it's gonna look really cool after. Okay, so that's kind of what you're gonna do. You're gonna go with your little knife and you're gonna go through all of your little trees. So I'm gonna do that here quickly in a nice little quick time lapse, and then we'll come back together and we'll finish it off with the branches. All right, so have fun. So you just finished going through and you got all your little black details on your trees. And you know what? You could look at this and maybe you just like it just the way it is, because technically you could just leave it like this. You don't have to stick in little branches down here. A lot of times branches on birch trees don't start till like midway or up higher, but we're gonna throw some on anyway. So it just depends on like where this is on the tree, who knows? And I'm gonna give you a couple little pointers. Branches sometimes scare people, so I wanna give you like a little bit of some tips that you could use while you're doing yours. So you're gonna use your fine brush that came in your kit, the little number 2 round. And you know what? I do recommend actually practicing a couple first before you kind of go to town on the canvas. So what I like to do is, I'll just give you a little tutorial here, because that's why you're watching this in the tutorial section. So you kind of can wet your brush a little bit. We don't want it too watery though. You don't want it too watery because then you're gonna like have water that will go everywhere. So wet it, wipe it, okay? Get a little bit of the paint. Okay, you got a fine little point there. Now you can practice a couple little branches on your plate, or you can turn your paper around if you want. And I'll show you a couple little things here. So it's really just all about pressure with branches. So wherever you start, you'll notice that if you press really hard, you'll get a thicker line. And when you go really light, you get the skinnier line, right? Now branches, think about it. When they're on the trees, they don't just stick straight out like hands, right? So if this was your tree, you know, if you just branched like this, I mean, some trees, they go like that, but we want to kind of like give them some life. And a lot of times think about branches as like reaching for the sky. They're reaching for that sunlight, right? So they got a little bit of movement on them. And in my classes, I used to always teach that branches had a little armpit, and I'll show you what I mean by that. So like, here's the finished product, right? So when the branch comes out of the tree, you kind of come up and out and twist. So you don't just go stick, right? You kind of give it a little armpit. So that's your little branch armpit, okay? Right there is a little curve, and those curves make all the difference, trust me. Little curve there, little curve there, so they're kind of coming up and out. Oh, did I just hit the camera, Steve? Mm-hmm. Maybe I did, I don't know. So I'll show you what I mean when I'm actually doing one, okay? Or again, maybe you practiced a couple on here, a couple little curvy ones. Like if this was the tree, I'd want to kind of go up and out, right? And then you can kind of bring it back and down. Okay, so you can already see the difference between that and that, right? And it's just practice using your brush really fine, and you'll get it. You will get it. So let's just do a couple. The best way to do it is just to do one, right? I'm actually obsessed with odd numbers when it comes to branches. So I kind of like to pre-plan, where do I want to put them? And I like them to come out from areas that already kind of have a little bit of black. So a little bit of water, wipe on your napkin, load it up. Because I wiped on the napkin too, it's a nice fine point, and I'm ready to go. All right, so let's put one right here. So I'm gonna come up and out very lightly. It almost becomes like, it just goes right off the canvas, okay? Now I wanna add a little extra to that. And I'm gonna press a little heavier down here, a little heavier. Okay, and I'm gonna lighten up as I get to the tip. Lighten up, bring it back if you want, smooth it out, and kind of marry it back to the branch or to the trunk. All right, so there's one. And the little twigs are just barely, super light pressure, like really light pressure. All right, so I'm gonna put a couple twigs off here, and I'm barely touching that tip. And I'm wiggling, just a little wiggle. And that's all you gotta do, just a little wiggle. So actually, if you kind of have a shaky hand, the twigs are perfect for you. Just a little wiggle, all right? So I got that one there. Where else looks like a good spot? Let's see. I'm gonna throw a little one down here, just right off this guy, this little spot. Why not? Okay, I'm just gonna kind of go off, and I'm just gonna wiggle up, and then I'm gonna press, and bring it down, okay? Kind of connect it. It's got that little kind of curvy, which I like. So there's the little armpit. There's the little armpit. I don't know why I call it armpits, I just do. Okay, and then a little wiggle, very lightly touching, little wiggle. Okay, and there's a little branch right there. All right, should we throw a couple more on, Steve? What do you think? Are you dying up there?
You can put one more on.
Let's put one more on. We'll put one more little branch on there for Steve. And of course, you can put as many as you want on. Let's see. Let's put one right here on this far guy. And he's going to go over this tree. All right. Which will make it the appearance that this tree is in front of this tree. It already is, right? Because that branch is behind it. So this is the dominant tree in the front. So let's take a branch right up here. Go right from here. Bring it up. Maybe it's going right off the page, right off the canvas. And then I'm going up to the top, starting light, pressing as I go down, making it a little thicker. Fill that in. This is a little bit of a bigger tree. And a couple little squiggles, okay? Let's see, very light. Very light. Barely touching. And you see that pinky? Pinky's kind of like my best friend there when it comes to branches. Helps guide me. And maybe there's a little branch that kind of comes off there. All right, there we go. So there's some branches. And then of course, when you're done, okay, wipe off your brush. Find a little happy spot to sign your name. And you know what? I'm actually gonna put my initials here. Why not? Right there. Maybe you want to put it actually in the tree or up the side or wherever. Okay, so I just want to thank you for painting this. I'd love to see it afterwards, so share it on our Creative Kits page. And if you share it on Instagram, make sure to hashtag Creative Kits and maybe you'll win a free one. All right, thanks everyone.